Yes, good morning, August. We are, we are gonna start with some things technical today. Yes, we're not gonna definitely do the subject, but we're definitely doing some bit of technicals today. So we're gonna understand what we were leaving off in the last class. In a little bit of a hurry of the last class, we were talking about what is called as direct tax laws. Very good. We started from the last side where we started understanding what do you mean by a law, and we ended our discussion with concluding the fact that law can, in very simple terms, mean any kind of rules and regulations. It does not necessarily have to be implemented, it just has to be discussed upon. So as long as you have a law which is being discussed upon, it is as good as a law. It is all about understanding whether it can be legal or illegal. In India, you can only make something as illegal if it is passed by the constitution. Your constitution will have to give you the powers to make a law in India, and that comes from article number 246. We have article number 246, which gives the powers to the parliament to pass a law. Yes, in India, if you want to pass a law can be of three types. Types are you have central law, then you have state law, and then you have concurrent laws. Very good. You have central law, you have state law, you have concurrent laws. Central law sits in parliament, state law sits in states, and concurrent sits with both central and state. Examples, if you can think of for me, people. Central law would be obviously Income Tax Act. Next. Any other central laws you have learned? From CA GST. Starting from foundation to inter to final, what and all laws have you learned? Contract Act is central law. Very good. Sale of Goods Act, central law. Partnership Act, central law. Inter law you learned. FEMA. You learned FEMA. FEMA is central law. Very good. You learned something called FEMA, which is a central law. Then you had GST. GST is a concurrent law. Very good. GST is a concurrent law. For those who remember this, GST has two kinds of acts which are passed. One is CGST, one is SGST, but there is also something called IGST. Which means this is a power which is combinedly taken up by central and state. Yes or no? Yes. Apart from that, people, you have something called Income Tax Act, which is sitting at central law. But during Income Tax Act, you would have also learned there is another law called as agricultural tax. Agricultural tax is actually sitting under state law. Very good. Agricultural tax is sitting under state law, which means for yours and mine syllabus at CA final, agriculture income is out of scope. Now what do I mean by out of scope? Very simple. If you see agricultural income, you will say it is taxable for income tax, not taxable for income tax. Is it taxable or not taxable? It is not taxable. Why is it not taxable? Because state has the powers to collect the tax on this. Yes, which means for income tax purposes, agriculture income is fully, very good, agriculture income has gone to become fully exempted. Yes, but to understand what is exempted, you need to know what do you mean by agriculture income. So we have a chapter on that also. We'll be discussing that together. But what is the understanding, people, is that if you classify something as agriculture income, I will tell it is fully exempt. If you tell it is not agriculture income, I would say it is fully taxable. Now, I have a very simple question, something which we'll discuss in agricultural chapter, but quickly enough. People, assuming I have agriculture income from Pakistan, I have agriculture income from Pakistan. Tell me, is it taxable or is it exempt? Okay, let me rephrase my question. When I have agriculture income in Pakistan, is it taxable under income tax or exempt? Assuming I'm a resident, ordinary resident as well. Is it taxable under income tax? Answer is yes, it is. Understand this carefully. When I said that the state will collect taxes, now becomes a big issue. When the income is coming from Pakistan, the whole question which I need to understand is, which state will collect taxes? Do I give a specific state the powers? No. When I cannot give any state the powers remains with central law, which means when I see agricultural income, I am only talking about those agricultural income which are earned from, very good, which are earned from India. The moment you say it is earned outside India, state will come and say, I am sorry, I don't have powers. The moment they raise their hands, the one person who will take up the responsibility will become central law. which is what I'm telling you people. When you say agricultural income, your definition of agricultural income may not match with the Income Tax Act, because under Income Tax Act, I only mean those agriculture income which is coming from India to be exempted. Are we clear? Yes. So the first and the most important thing which you need to understand is who gives you the powers to make the law. Correct? Yes, yes, yes. Very good. Now, second question comes up is, how does a law get created? How does a law get created? What and all will be required to make a law? First and the foremost thing. What do you think? What do you think you need to make a law? First, you should have a necessity. There should be some requirement in the world to make such a guideline. Yes or no? Yes. So very good. Starting planning stage, you have to have a necessity. Great. Implementation stage. What is the bare minimum requirements? What do you need in hand? A document which has to go to people. Which has to go to people. In India, the document is called as, very good, it's called as a bill. Yes. So what gets passed in the parliament is called as a bill. Everything which starts with something called as a bill. Nirmala ma'am will come on 1st February, eat some halwa and all, and then go to the parliament, show up a bill. She will inform that this is the bill which will have all the new changes. Yes. This bill will then get approved at Lok Sabha stage, go to Rajya Sabha, goes on to who's the new president of India? இப்போதானே மூவ் பண்ணாங்க. Just recently she resigned. Someone else has joined in. नहीं पता? पढ़ के आ जाओ. Yes, you will give it off to me in the next class. Recently she resigned, people. Recently Murmura has resigned and there is another person who's taken up the role and responsibilities. Find out who that person is and bring it to me in the next class. Yes. Now, point is very simple. When you go to the president, my question is very simple. At Lok Sabha stage, you will approve. At Rajya Sabha stage also you will approve. But at president stage, you end up giving a assent. At president stage, you end up giving an assent. Now, a very simple standard question, English format, people. What is the difference between approval and assent? Are they the same? Are they different? Inter-level syllabus, huh? Very good. People, approval basically means that I have a choice to reject. I can only approve when I have the power to reject. Assent means confirmation. Assent means confirmation. In India, people, president only grants an assent. President only grants an assent, which means he comes and clarifies this is a bill which is now going to become an act. Here is my sign on it. Here is my sign on it. Which means my question is very simple. Can a president reject an bill? Can a president reject a bill? No. President has no power to reject a bill. He only has the power to sign. He only has the power to sign. Now, imagine, people, Murmura or whoever the new person is, has not been comfortable with the new Income Tax Act. Imagine he thinks 2025 was the worst act ever created. He doesn't want to sign. He doesn't want to sign. What happens to the bill? Meaning, he has never signed. Assent na sign pannolla. Sign is not done. He's not ready to sign the document. What happens? Sorry? She can send it back to the parliament for review. They can sit on the bill for as long as they want, is it? The Supreme Court has passed a guideline which says they have to pass the bill, is it? Not really, but nevertheless, a very good attempt, people. Yes, a president at the max can send it back for a review stage. He may come and say there are some drafting errors, please correct it off and give it back to me. But at any stage, if a president is going to sit on it, India guidelines come and say a president has 14 days to grant his assent. He has 14 days to grant his assent. Within 14 days, if the person signs it, it becomes an act. If he does not sign it, it will be deemed as an act. It will be deemed as an act, which means on the 15th day, they will assume that he has given his approval. Yes, we learnt it something in Contract Act, people. Silent tantamounts to acceptance. Silent tantamount to acceptance. 15th day is in silent acceptance on India, people. That is how the laws of presidentship are. Which means in India, president is a dummy figure. His job is only to sign it. Yes, which then brings the $1 million question. Why did you want to take that effort also? When anyway it is going to get signed off, what is the responsibility of a president? Why did you need that person itself in India? Logical question. Logical question. Yes, answer is very simple. People, do you know a president is called as the? Very good. What does it mean? English to pad liya. What does it mean? People, a first citizen of India in very simple terms means he is the head of the family. A first citizen of India means it is assumed that he is the head of the family. And in our family, Indian traditions, people, when you start something new, bado ka, yes, you need elderly's blessings. You don't need elderly's approval. You need elderly's blessings. So, president is here for me to grant his blessing, not his, that is what is called president assent. Yes. So, in India's tradition, people, we go to president and come and say, this is what we are doing. If you're okay, amazing. If you're not okay, that is your headache. You have to simply grant me president assent, or in simple words, blessing. मेरे को blessing दे दो, act बनना ही है. Yes, which is why I'm telling you this, people, because for those who know, Income Tax Act 2025 recently launched, one of the poorest draft. I don't know for what reason they were in that hurry to complete it off. Yes, they went ahead. Lok Sabha made some changes. Rajya Sabha got it approved. President gave it off in a single day. In a single day, assent president gave. After the act came into picture is when people are reviewing it and they're saying there are so many errors in the Income Tax Act. Drafting is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. For those who understand this, Income Tax Act has come up with a new concept saying we will not call it previous year. We will now call it tax year. Yes, which means in the whole Income Tax Act, you should have only agreed, not agreed. Yes, there are at least 5 different places where it reads previous year even now. And the funny thing is, in the whole Income Tax Act, it is not even defined what is previous year. They have only defined what is tax year. They have not even defined what is previous year, which means in the Income Tax Act, now I would, if you come and ask me, I would assume previous year means the year before tax year. Correct, not correct? Yes, nothing is assumed. What will I assume? It is the year previous to the tax year. It is passed off. No one even knows why. Yes, people are now coming and commenting on there are changes to be made. Now, luckily for you people, before the act comes into picture next April, we have a budget in Feb. We have a budget in Feb, which means Nirmala Tai still has chance to change it. Yes, which is then one question I asked. If you already had an opportunity in Feb to make changes, you could have might as well passed it in Feb itself. Kis baat ki jaldi thi? Yes, it's anyway not going to come until next April. And you have Feb until then, which means you could have passed it in Feb itself. Why did you want to bring it right now? It's all the halla balla, people, nothing else. Nirmala ma'am wanted to come and say, I promised you last year, no, I will do it. Ye lo kar diya. Yes. Acha and all is not the question. You wanted me to do it, I did it for you. That is what. Yes, I am here to listen to the voice of the public. You asked me, I did it. Acha hai to nahi hai. Nahi to baad mein jao, mere ko kya. Yes, that is how the model is in India right now, people. But nevertheless, that is how it works off. Clear? Yes. Now, understand this carefully. When you create an act comes in 2 formats. In every year, you generally create one act. But there are some particular special years where you end up creating 2 acts, like election years. Last year was the year. Yes, when you have elections, you end up creating 2 acts. The reason is very simple. Elections happen in April to May period. Yes, it happens between April to May period, and the budget comes in February. That is where the whole problem starts, because when you have a budget passed in February, the person passing the budget is the ruling party. Yes, which means a person who comes in the elections, if he is a new party, it becomes a problem. He will have to make changes and he'll have to wait for the next February. They don't want that risk. So in election years, we end up passing 2 budgets. You are very, very fortunate enough that you're writing the new one. Last year's budget, crazy amendments. Capital gains was changed to so much that last year had something, new year had something. Persons were reading both the law. Was so painful in the last year. Luckily for you, only one of those things apply. Yes, so you are lucky enough to that extent that you will not be reading 2 acts. You'll be reading only 1 act. But you're unfortunate to the extent that you will now be reading still 2 acts. You'll still be reading 2 acts. I'll tell you why. Yes, people, understand. You have been given 2 opportunities. Opportunity number 1, to create a main act in February. Opportunity number 2, to create an act in August or July when you are doing election years. But imagine a very hypothetical example. There are mistakes in the act. It is not even the election year. I know I have to make changes. Will I wait until next February? I will have to make immediate changes. Can I call a parliament meeting right away for that? Can I call a parliament meeting right away? One day Nirmala ma'am will wake up and she'll come and say, I forgot to make this change. Call everyone from every state. Let's have a meeting for this. Can we do that? No. People in Lok Sabha, we only have 2 sessions. One is called winter session and one is called summer session. Everyone meets up only twice. They don't meet anyone after that, because understand people, Lok Sabha is a group of all state ministers, which means to conduct one Lok Sabha session, you need to call every minister from every state. Unka travel ka kharcha, khane ka kharcha, ye kharcha, wo kharcha, breaking chairs, all those kind of costs to be taken into consideration. Cannot do it very frequently enough. Yes, in those cases, people comes in a next concept called as, very good, called as ordinance. What is it called as? It is called as ordinance. Ordinance is a special act which is created by India, where the respective ministry is given powers in order to make immediate changes. They will not need anyone's approval. They can right away pass a change when it is absolutely required. Yes, which means in the current year, people, while yes, you're going to read with me Finance Act 2025, we also have a very small ordinance which has been released. No one is aware about it. It was very recently released, something called as Taxation Laws Amendment Act 2025. Yes, there has been a very small ordinance which was passed. Why was it passed? Different discussion. Yes, different discussion. But yes, you are not going to be reading one act with me. You'll be reading 2 acts with me. Yes. Now, my question is very simple. When you told that you have an ordinance, Nirmala ma'am has been given extraordinary powers to pass it right away. Yes. Now, imagine you have that much power. Tell me, will you make amendments by an act or will you make an amendment by an ordinance? Why? People, in an act, I'll have to go through approval process. I'll have to report to someone. In an ordinance, I don't even have to ask someone, which means I would like to prefer an correct, not correct. Yes. Aput, you think ordinance is that simple? Obviously, people, ordinance is ministry's way of coming and saying, implement something right away. No problems. No problems. But any stage it has to get approved. Which means a rule is that once an ordinance is passed, after the next session takes place, the first thing which will be placed is an ordinance. They will place the ordinance and come and say, Nirmala ma'am, in this month, in this date, had done something like this. Are you comfortable or are you not comfortable? Who am I asking this? The Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. At this stage, 2 things can happen. One, they can approve it off. At stage number 1, they can approve it off. People, question is very simple. Understand this example. Imagine ordinance was passed in August. Next session is happening in March. In March, they said, yes, approved, no problem. When does this act apply from? It applies retrospectively from August. Which is what you learned in Contract Act, people, something called as ratification. Which means you end up ratifying it from that date. Question number 2, you have option 2. You can end up rejecting the ordinance. Imagine in the month of March, I ended up rejecting the ordinance. What happens? Nothing will, meaning? But you've already done things from August to March, no? Will it change prospectively or will it change retrospectively? It will change retrospectively. People, understand, you cannot change it prospectively, because if the parliament was never okay with this, how can you come and say that it is applicable from August to March? It makes no sense. Yes, between August to March, you might have done some few things. No, are you okay with those kind of changes? No. Understand, this is a way of coming and saying, whatever Nirmala ma'am or any other law passes is merely acting as an agency model. She is representing the parliament, who is here acting as a principal. Which means if principal itself comes and says, I am not responsible for it, do you think the law can be implemented? No. Which means if it gets rejected in the month of March, this will be called as void ab initio. In simple words, approval also happens retrospectively, rejection also happens retrospectively. Agreed? Yes. Why am I telling you this? The law which was passed right now, people, the taxation ordinance which has been passed off right now, is still waiting approvals. It's still waiting approvals. It's on its stage. It's on its stage. President has given its assent on it, but only as an ordinance. An act is yet to be implemented. An act is yet to be implemented. So to that extent, it is still waiting on its part. Clear with me? Yes. So that is how a law works into picture. Clear? Yes. So understand this carefully. When I have to create a law, step number 1, have a vision. Step number 2, create a draft which becomes an act. Is that the only thing which you need? What else do you need? Can you only run by an act? You need something called as a rules. Very good. You need something called rules. Next. So if I understand this carefully, you're telling me for me to have a law, you need to have a few things. What and all? You need to have an act. Next. You need to have a rules. Next. क्या क्या पढ़ा इंटर में? Explanations is part of act. Clarification regarding what do you want to clarify? Very good. You have something called as circulars. The way you're staring at me, I will have to ask you what are these items. Very good. You have something called as notification. The silence is hurting. Next. I heard it. Very good. You have something called as case laws. Yes, this is something which is very, very special to you CA final students. As a CA final students, the last thing is what you're going to pay extra attention to. Yes, the first 4 things, presumably you did in inter. I'm using my words very, very carefully. Presumably is what you did it in inter. The last thing is what you're doing in finals. Now, people, for those who have read civics properly, little bit of civics of your school times. Yes, act is created by legislative body. Rule is created by who creates rules, by the way? First of all, let's start with that. Who creates rule? Nirmala ma'am. Obviously. Who creates rules? People, okay. Before even I get there, what is the difference between act and a rule? First of all, pehle wo kar lo. I'm sitting at that point right now. Okay. Some regulatory authority, power vested by the act. Okay. What is the difference is my question. I don't care who issues the rules. My question is, what is the difference between an act and a rule? Why did you need 2 documents, people? I was okay with the act itself, no? Act could have done everything for me in life. Why did I want a rule and all? Extra book for me. For those who have seen, people, income tax act will be this big. Income tax rules will be this big. 2 big volumes you have to read. Adhigna paisa I could have read 1 act itself. Size is important, is it? Very good. Let's understand this carefully, people. Here is where the question comes. Yes, act comes and says what to do. Act comes and says what to do. Rules come and say how to do. Understand this very simple example. Today I am coming and saying 15th September was the due date for filing my income tax return. It automatically got extended. It got extended on 11:32 AM PM. Got extended on 11:32 PM. Yes, we made that change on 11:32 PM, people. Understand this carefully. For making this extension from 15th September to 16th September, you will call Nirmala ma'am at 11 o'clock in the night and come and say, ma'am, everyone is calling me, bugging me on the phone, give an extension. Correct, huh? Yes. For doing that extension, people, what Nirmala ma'am will have to do? She will pass an ordinance immediately on 11:30 saying, call the parliament, let's pass an ordinance, make an extension. Can you do that? Is she that stupid enough? People, is she responsible first of all for this? What is her job? Her job is to come and say people should file return. Her job is not to come and say how to file a return. That responsibility lies with the specialized bodies. If you understand this carefully, in a parliament, are we only talking about finance minister sitting inside? The persons who are passing any kind of act and a bill is being passed by every ministry, which means there is agricultural ministry also sitting there. Do you think agricultural ministry understands income tax act? Do you think they understand income tax act? Which means they have only been given responsibility to make a law. They have not been given responsibility to administer the law. Yes or no? That has to be taken care by a specialized body. Every law has its own specialized body. In income tax, we call them CBDT. Very good. We call them CBDT. CBDT is a specialized body which is created in Income Tax Act to come and clarify how should something be done. How should something be done? A very simple example if I have to give you people. Imagine Act comes and says you need to file an appeal. You need to file an appeal. Now understand people, if Act says file an appeal, you will go and you will file an appeal as it is. You need to know some things. First, where to file. Next, how to file. People, same question list. When to file. Very good. Next. Next. When to file. Next. To whom should I file? Very good. Next. Next. What happens if I don't file? All these questions you need to ask yourself. Now people, do you think Nirmala ma'am has the time to answer all these questions to you? She will come one day, put an PPT slide for you and come and say, you need to log into income tax e-filing portal. There you have to click on e-file. On that e-file, there is something called income tax forms. Click on the income tax forms. Your director should come to my office, put a sign on this, give me chapa on this. All this is Nirmala ma'am's responsibility. Can you put all this in an act? People, act cannot give you all these kind of changes. These are to be done by a specialized body, which is what is CBDT. They are the ones who create rules. Very good. They are the one who create rules, which means rules are done by an administrative body. Rules are done by an administrative body. Very good. Last two things. Circulars, notifications. Done by CBDT. Same person is doing all the three things, which then brings the $1 million question. Rahul, what is the difference between all the three? What is the difference between all the three? Why do you need two different documents now? You could have already had rules. That itself is a big document. Now you are introducing circulars and notifications also. Are they three the same or are they different? Obviously they're different. What is the difference? Circulars are for? What are you trying to clarify? Rules. Why are you trying to clarify rules? You could have changed the rule itself, no? Try again. People, मेरे को इंटर डर लग रहा है. कुछ की बढ़ के आया हो तुम लोग. These are not even final level syllabus people. कुछ की करवा रहा हूं मैं. Circulars are clarifications to the public on ambiguity. Is it a clarification to the public or for the department? Sorry? People, I'll give you a very simple example. Let's see if you understand this carefully. Imagine today I have a tummy ache. Yes, I have a tummy ache. I would like to go to a doctor. I went to the first doctor. Yes, the first doctor comes to me and comes and says, no problem, pa, maybe acidity. Go home, take some antacids, you will get fine. Yes, I took antacids for 2 days, nothing worked out. I would go back again. Same doctor, different doctor. Obviously different doctor. This doctor did not work out. So I went to a different doctor. The different doctor come and say, no, something looks wrong. Something looks wrong. Maybe you have food poisoning. Why don't you get admitted? Yes, I will run some tests on you and then I will clear you off. Yes, I sat in the hospital for another 2 weeks. Nothing came out in the food poisoning. I would like to change opinion. I went to a third doctor. Third doctor come and says, sir, आपको वो हो गया जो होना नहीं होना चाहिए था. Yes, you have something which you should not have. I'm also like, क्या? He's like, sir, आपको AIDS हो गया. Yes, I'm now little worried. Like, स्टमी एक में एड्स कैसे हो सकता है? वो तो कहीं और होता है. Yes. So I'm like, okay, boss, something is definitely wrong. I decided to go to a different doctor. This doctor came and said, sir, I have a very bad news. You have only 1 day to live. And unfortunately, that expired yesterday. Yes. Now I am in a position where a small tummy ache has moved from acidity to death sentence. Yes or no? Tell me people, what will be my mindset? Will I ever trust a doctor anymore? Will I ever trust a doctor anymore? When one simple tummy ache has become so much in a doctor profession, imagine what happens in a law. Imagine what happens in a law. Understand this very simple example. When I am sitting in income tax department, I am trying to ask a clarification. Whom am I going and asking? Whom am I going and asking? I am asking my officer. I will go to my officer and I'll come and say, sir, this is what the issue is. Tell me what is your suggestion. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Now, people, this officer will remain with me for life. Correct? Not correct? Will this officer remain with me for life? No. This is a government job. Officer will keep changing. Imagine 2 years later, a different officer comes. I go to this officer, give him the same facts, and I tell him, sir, this is what the issue is. This officer says, no, I don't accept. But I say, sir, but your previous officer accepted it. What is the problem? He's like, boss, he's a different guy. I'm a different guy. Think and tell me, people, will you be able to run your business properly? It'll cause troubles to you. Same facts, different officers are talking different statements. Problem is with me or problem is with the department? Problem is with the department. Would I be happy with this? Not happy with this. What would I do? What would I do? I'll go and complain. I'll go and, whom will I complain? I will go and complain the boss. Yes, I'll go and complain the boss saying, sir, your juniors are talking shit to me. One junior says something, the other junior says something else. You are their boss. You tell me what is the right answer. You tell me what is the right answer. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now I will go to CBDT. I will ask them for a clarification. CBDT will give me a clarification. Tell me, people, if the boss itself has given a clarification, can the officers talk two different statements? Which means now I will take this clarification, go to my assessing officer and come and say, sir, see, sir, your boss has said this. You have to follow. Tomorrow this officer leaves, another officer comes. Same statement I will give him also. And I'll say, sir, this is what your boss said. You have to follow. Correct? Not correct? At this stage, can the officer say no? In which simple terms, the document which you have has now become a guideline for department. Has become a guideline for the department. Agreed? Not agreed? Agreed. But understand this carefully. When I went to the CBDT and CBDT gave me a document, I am not happy with the document. I asked them an opinion. They gave me an opinion. I am okay, I follow. I am not okay, will I follow? If I am not okay, people, generally you are all working in a CA firm. A client comes to you, asks you for an opinion. You give them a big memo, naam waam sab dal ke, glorify karke. He has two options. He can either follow or not follow. People, if he does not follow, will I hold him responsible? Will I hold him responsible? I simply give a disclaimer from my end, no, that I have given you my thoughts. If you are okay, you follow. If not, it's your choice. Same logic, no. When I went to CBDT and I asked them for an opinion, if I like it, I will follow. If I don't like it, I will not follow. Which means, tell me this carefully, this circular is ever binding on me. Who am I? I am the assessee. Is it ever binding on me? Is it ever binding on me? It is only binding on the department. It is only binding on the department. Agreed? Not agreed? Yes. You would have seen this very simply in your school timings, people. During your school offices and all, class mein when you are sitting, suddenly one peon will come, will go to your ma'am, will give him a document and will come and say, ma'am, this has come from the principal. Can you please sign it off? She'll take the register, sign it off. You will be overexcited. You will go to ma'am and come and say, ma'am, kya hai? Kya hai? Mere ko chahiye. Your ma'am will tell you, not tell you. Your ma'am will tell you, not tell you. Will not tell you. Ma'am will come and say, this is between me and the principal. Apo, that is applicable only to the teachers. It is not applicable to the students. Correct? Yes. Which means an assessee is nothing but a student. The teachers are nothing but the department, guys. Principal is sitting here as the CBDT. Agreed? Not agreed? Apo, in simple terms, people, circular is nothing but a clarification given by the CBDT to the department, binding only on, not binding on, but I can follow, but I can, if it is favorable to me. Very good. If it is favorable to me. Now, why am I telling you this? The example which I just gave you, the rebate circular which has come out and comes and says that I will waive off interest. I will waive off interest. Tell me, was it a notification or a circular? It was a circular. The circular comes and clarifies that I will make you pay tax on new tax regime, but I will not levy interest. Now, to the extent of interest, it is favorable to me, so I will follow. But to the extent of the clarification that you have to pay tax on short-term capital gains, am I happy, not happy? Am I happy, not happy? I am not happy. I will say, who are you to come and say? My courts have come and told me this is favorable for me. I would not follow, which means I have a choice to not follow. I will continue with what I'm doing. Tomorrow, if department does not like it, I will file a appeal on it. I will file an appeal on it. Agreed. Agreed. Yes. So which means one thing you need to understand as a practical situation, people, is that when department launches a circular, this is only for your reference. This is only for your reference. As an assessee, you can choose either to follow or choose not to follow. Accepted, not accepted. Accepted. Perfect. That brings me to notifications. What do you mean by a notification? Is this the same thing? Who's passing it? Same CBDT is passing it. Who? What is the difference now, people? What is a notification now? What is a notification now? Let me take you back to your school. Yes, in your school, people, you have this big brown color board called as notice board. In that, there will be a big heading called notification notice. Hereby, till your board exams come up, you will not have any more PT periods. All your teachers will take over your extra classes, plus students who are not performing well will now have extra classes. Will have extra classes. Tell me, people, this notification or notice which has been sent across is for the teachers. Yes. Class to unko hi lena hai. Are you going to take the class? They're only going to take the class. Is it for the teachers? Is it for you? Which means it is applicable on both the persons. It is applicable on both the persons. Appo you will also follow, they will also follow. What will you give in a notification? Things which are relevant for both. Example like, very common thing which is going on right now. Shabada. Due date extensions. Things like due date extension. People, due date extensions for department or for me? Is for both, obviously, which means both have to follow. Tomorrow can department come and say, who's Nirmala? I will not accept. Bol sakte hain. Can you come and say, why are you giving me 1 day only? I want 5 days. Which means the moment it is launched, it is applicable on both the parties. It is applicable on both the parties. Therefore, it is binding on both. People, tell me one other thing which is binding on both. Act is obviously binding on both. Next. Rules is also binding on both. Which means, people, question is very simple. When I want to change a law in the form of an act, I will make it by way of... If I want to change an act, I will make it by a bill. I will make it by a bill. Hey, who can pass this? Legislative body can pass this. Appo to change an act, you need a bill. Correct. Yes. People, to change a rule. Who is changing the rule? CBDT. CBDT has a document called notification. Rules are binding on both. Notification is binding on. So if you want to change a rule, you will do it by... Very good. You will change it by notification. Samajh mein aa raha hai? Yes. So how does changes happen in India, people? When an act is changed, it is done by a bill. When a rule is changed, it is done by a notification. That is how you change a rule. Otherwise, you don't have any other document. You don't have any other document. Are we making sense? Yes. So these are 4 things which make a law. Which make a law. I am now looking at how to break the law. How do you break a law? By the case laws. Done by something called as a judicial body. Done by something called as a judicial body. People, India civics in all practical sense has come from Hindi mythology. We have 3 gods. Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. Brahma creates the world. Vishnu manages the world. And Shiva destroys the world. Civics works on the same logic. Act makes the law. Rules follow the law. And the case laws destroy the law. Yes, they are here only to help. They're definitely not there to help public. Yes, they are here only there to interpret laws. They will interpret the law and try to give you answers which are between the lines. Give you answers which are between the lines. Agreed? Yes, yes. Now at inter-syllabus, people, you would have learned act, rules, circulars, notifications. This was part of your inter-syllabus. If you have read it, amazing. If not, no worries. Yes. What is getting added extra in your final level is case laws. This is what we'll be discussing in detail. Yes, you have about 300 and odd case laws in your syllabus. Yes, you have about 300 and odd case laws in your syllabus. You have something called significant case laws being introduced in your syllabus as a part of every chapter. Yes, the only good news for you is nothing of that will be tested in exam. Yes, why is the significant case laws given to you? Is for you to understand how to read something. Yes, when you read something, what is the change to be read in that is what you'll be using it. Apart from that, the case laws pretty much help you in your compulsory questions. Basically, when they give you a computational question, one of the case laws can be added up as an adjustment for you. Yes, so to that extent is what you're going to pay attention to. Apo Rahul, can I ignore case laws for exam? No. Why? Because apart from the 300 case laws, for your exam, you'll also be given additional case laws. Yes, these case laws which are given in your study material are all case laws from the past. Because you're writing exam, you will be given some special case laws which will be introduced by ICI called as judicial updates. So for every attempt, they'll launch something called as a judicial update where they'll add an extra 5 to 6 case laws to you. Yes, this 5 to 6 case laws would be the latest case laws which has come in for your attempt. These 5 case laws is what you're going to pay attention to, because out of the 5, one will come for exam. One will 101% come for exam. That is how the pattern is. Yes, so case laws in your study material, I will discuss with you. As in, I will come in the class, I'll come and give you a scenario. I will ask you to give your opinion and then we will form a case law only for your understanding purposes. Apart from that, when judicial updates come up, I will give you a separate document clarifying what are those case laws in detail so that you can read those 5 or 6 for your exam purposes of. Are we making sense? Yes, perfect. Now, before I take you forward, I want to understand the case laws. People who are giving case laws? Judicial bodies. Tell me people, income tax Puerto Rico, the judicial bodies are. Where do you start? How does your appeal process look like? My experts. Yogi sir. You start from CITA. You start from CITA. People, I'm focusing only on income tax. There are other ways to do it differently also. I'm in income tax. The first level of appeal goes to CITA, which is nothing but Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals. Very good. When a format of CITA is given to you, the template of the case law looks something like this. It starts with saying ITA number so and so of so and so. It starts with ITA number so and so of so and so. In simple words, it is, what is ITA? Income tax appeal. So it is income tax the appeal number so and so of so and so. When you see it in that way, it means it is done by CITA appeals. Yes. Now, question is very simple. I have got an order from CITA appeals. Whom does it apply to? Whom does it apply to? Can I take the CITA appeals order and go to Mumbai court and come and say, sir, this is what I have from Chennai, approve it of? Approve it of? Can I do that? No. People, CITA is like the boss of your officer, which means this order will apply only to you. This order will only apply to you. You can take this order and go to your assessing officer and come and say, sir, this is what your boss has come and say, please follow. Please follow. People, I'm not happy with CITA. I end up going to, very good, you end up going to a person called ITAT, called as Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. In very simple words, this is a quasi-judicial body. What do you mean by quasi-judicial body? It is not exactly a court, but it is given the status of a court. It is given the status of the court. The reason is very simple. I cannot pass everything to High Court because there is already enough cases in High Court to handle off. So I created a special body which will only handle income tax matters. Similar to this, every law has their own tribunals. For example, GST has GST Appellate Tribunal. Companies Act has NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal. Everyone has their own tribunals. Income tax has ITAT. How does ITAT look like? Same format. It says ITA number so and so, but with an additional twist. This time they will add something like MDS and then add the year and then add the year. What does MDS mean? What does MDS mean? MDS is Madras. MDS is Madras. Basically, additional thing which is getting added is your state jurisdiction. Is your state jurisdiction, which means it changes. Sometimes recently they have made changes, people. Now it is called CHN. They started using Chennai as a case. Yes, earlier and all they used to use MDS. Now they use CHN. Everyone will have their own things. So Bangalore will use BAN and so on and so forth. Yes, people, ITAT has passed an order. This applies to the whole state This applies to the whole state. The fact that I'm using Chennai itself means that I'm giving this order for the whole Chennai, which means I can apply it to any person, which means if Rahul is getting an order, Aryan, Yogi, anyone can go and come and tell to his officer, sir, see sir, this location officer has approved it and this location tribunal has given the powers. Therefore, you will have to follow. You will have to follow. Can I take my Chennai order and go to Mumbai and ask for a favorable order? Can I do that? Can I do that? Yes, only as a reference. Yes, only as a reference. My point is very simple. The Mumbai tribunal is not binding. They don't have to follow it, but they can rely on it. They can definitely rely on it. They can come and say, no problem. I think this is making sense. Facts are all the same. I will might as well follow. Yes or no? Yes, people, I'm not happy with tribunal. Move on forward to what we call as High Court. Move on forward to what is called as High Court. You can only approach an High Court when there is a question of law. When you cannot approach them, when it's a question of fact. When it's a question of fact, which means you cannot approach an High Court and come and say, sir, there is some issues in my notice. The notice issues is that he is coming and saying that he's not verified facts. Can you go to a High Court for it? No. You cannot verify facts before a High Court. You can only question a law, which means you need to fight it legally. You need to fight it legally, which is why in India, people, we say ITAT is the last fact-finding authority. It's called the last fact-finding authority. This is the only person who can verify data. This is the only person who can verify data. What do I mean by this? A very simple example. Imagine Rahul is sitting in an assessment and the officer has come and said that, Rahul, you have not submitted your invoices to me. Because you did not submit your invoices, I am not happy with the expense you claimed. Therefore, I would like to disallow the expense. I would like to disallow the expense. Rahul was not happy. Rahul approached CITA. CITA can verify facts. Can he go and ask me to submit the invoices? Yes, I can go and submit the invoice to CIT. CIT will approve it for me. I was not happy with the claim there. I went to ITAT. Can I submit my invoices to ITAT? Yes. Can they verify? Yes. Can they pass a favorable order? Yes. Can I take the same case and go to High Court and say, sir, this is my invoices, please approve? No. High Court will come and say, I'm sorry, I'm not here to verify facts. I have anyway too much things on my plate. You should have already discussed this at ITAT level. If you got it favorable there, great for you. If not, I'm sorry, get lost from here. Yes, so that is what High Court looks like. After High Court, we approach Supreme Court. After High Court, we end up approaching Supreme Court, the apex body of India. The apex body of India. Here is where anything which gets passed becomes applicable to the whole of India. Becomes to the whole of India. In simple words, people come and say that a Supreme Court judgment is like the law of the land, because when a Supreme Court has passed it, everyone is following it, and when everyone is following it, it's as good as saying it is a new law. It is as good as saying it is a new law. Supreme Court has the powers to make a law or break a law. They can make the law also, they can break the law also. They have enough powers to come and say that I don't accept this provision, I will delete it off. They have that much enormous amounts of powers. But the problem is, if you are not able to get something favorable at Supreme Court level, you are stuck. Nothing else can happen from here. Is that the right statement? Is that the right statement? Is the statement to say that Supreme Court is the last person to go and fight for? True or false? True or false? False. Who else can you approach? If you are not happy with the Supreme Court judgment, you can ask Parliament to override it. People, if Supreme Court is not passing it favorable, technically why will Parliament come and accept it in your favor? If it is not favorable to you, it means it's favorable to the Parliament, right? When it's already favorable to the Parliament, do you think Parliament is that nice to you? That's not going to happen, definitely. Others, evlo Supreme Court irukku? Two things can happen, people. One is that when it comes to Supreme Court also, there are multiple layers in it. Yes, there is something called as a single bench member. There is something called as a multiple bench member. Yes, imagine if your judgment has been passed by a single bench member. You can always ask for a higher panel. You can ask for a higher panel, in which case the higher panel will come and decide for your case. And if the higher panel can approve it, then It's still a favorable judgment for you. Yes, that is how it is. But forget the fact. Imagine Supreme Court itself is not an opportunity. Is there an opportunity after this? Is there an opportunity after this? Answer is yes. Answer is yes, but only for specific matters. Understand, people, if it is an issue of India, it will lie only with Supreme Court. But if it's an issue of a cross-border transaction, you can definitely approach International Court of Justice. Yes, there is an additional layer called as ICJ also applicable to you, but that is only for cross-border transactions. That is only for cross-border transactions. It is not something which any single person can approach for, only for foreign transactions. Yes, very, very remotely some cases go and end up in ICJ, but they definitely do. Yes, at CA final level, you need to understand that Supreme Court is not the only power which you have. You can definitely approach an ICJ when it is required. When it is required. Are we making sense? Yes. Now, I want you to understand this carefully. The layer which I have given to you right now, starting from CIT, going to ITAT, going to High Court and going to Supreme Court, is that the only opportunity you have? Can you surpass a few people? Can you surpass a few people? People, I am not happy with going through this whole process because the problem is CIT takes ages. I'm not even telling years. They takes ages. Yes, CIT Puerto Rico, there is no timelines given in the act. There is a recommendatory timeline of 1 year, which means if they want, they can take any amount of time. I still have in my company cases pending of 2006, still lying in CIT appeals, not having cleared off because officer says he's not interested. Yes. Now tell me, people, in that scenario, can you wait for 20 years just to get a case closed off? No. You would like to move the judgment faster. Yes. In which case, would you like to surpass a few people? Yes, I would like to surpass a few people. Whom and all can I surpass off? I can surpass off a directly approach. Can you approach ITAT directly? Can you approach ITAT directly? No, there is no chance that you can approach an ITAT directly. There is no such opportunity. You will have to also surpass a ITAT and end up approaching high courts by filing something called as, very good, by filing something called as a writ petition. Now, what does a writ petition mean in all practical sense, people? You would have learned so many words called writ petition. You would have seen so many instances where in India people end up filing writ petition. My question is writ petition something so fancy that anyone can do it? Can anyone do it? No. When does someone end up filing a writ petition? What is the minimum requirement for something to be filed as a writ petition? No idea. No idea. No idea. Two conditions, people. Condition number one, a writ petition can only be filed when there is no alternate remedies. You have tried everything from your side, but nothing is working out. You would like to go for a writ petition. Issue number two, you can only go to a writ petition not for issues of law and all. It is for abuse of authority. It is for abuse of authority. When an officer has abused your authority is when you can approach for a writ petition. Yes, in simple words, I'll give you examples. In income tax department, people, when do I generally approach for a writ petition? Issue number one, I have generally approached a writ petition for a case where if I want to get a refund from the department, but the department is not ready to give it. I've tried my level best. Yes, there are rectifications filed, there are follow-ups done, every single thing has been done from my side, including the fact that Income Tax Act itself comes and says they need to pass it within 6 months. Despite all that, the officer is not ready. At this stage, I have no alternate remedy happening because unless I have an order, I cannot further appeal, which means I am stuck here. I cannot do anything here. In this case is when I will directly hit for High Court. I will hit for High Court, file a writ petition and come and tell the department that I'm sorry, sir, the department is not favoring me. I am not able to get my money out of them. I need the immediate access. That is when a writ petition is filed off. Situation number one. Situation number two, the most practical issue which happens, people, of late. Imagine a very simple example. You had a company in your hand. You had a company in your hand. This company unfortunately got amalgamated. Yeah. Meaning this company is going to shut down. This company is going to shut down. The problem what happens now, people, is that the moment you shut down the company, the bank account is closed. The bank account is closed. Can you get the money? Not get the money. You cannot get the money. Now, issue what is happening is, in my current company, I had some refunds pending. The officer has processed the refund also, but the money is not hitting my bank account. The money is not hitting my bank account. Why? The bank is closed. What will I do? I will go and inform the officer that, sir, the company is amalgamated. Why don't you give me the refund in my new company? Logical request. Should he accept, not accept? Should he accept, not accept? He will not accept. Yes, India people, there is one big issue which has come up recently in the last 2 years, is that income tax department says refund can only be given in a bank account which has your PAN number. Which means if your PAN number is not there on the bank account, no refund for you. And my new company's PAN number is not going to tally. So I have tried my level best. I will go to the officer and come and say, sir, this is the bank account, give it to me. He will say, I'm sorry, Rahul, even if I try, it will not get processed because CPC will not approve. What is CPC? The centralized processing cell, the automatic department of income tax, the faceless center. Yes, not exactly the faceless assessment center, the faceless processing center. Yes, they will say CPC will not approve. They will not give you the refund. I said, sir, if that is the case, why don't you give me a manual check? You give me the manual check, I will encash it from my side. Logical, not logical? Logical. He will not approve that also. He will say, Rahul, I'm sorry, manual check has been removed from the system itself. We don't have that opportunity anymore because it was used for corruption models. Yes. Now people, do I have any other alternatives? Nothing is left in my hand. The only way I have is hitting the High Court. I will go and hit the High Court and I'll come and say, I'm sorry, sir, I need my money. This is a legal, eligible money for me. Unnecessary department is bringing in administrative concerns for me to not give my refund off. Kindly direct the department to give me a check or pass it on to the next company. Here is a case where I had no alternate remedy and the officer was abusing his powers by simply quoting administrative burdens. Yes, this is how a writ petition works. Does that make sense? Yes. Last and the most common scenario in India. The most common scenario which happens, people, is normally what happens is, and department, every time they have to pass an order, are given certain timelines. Every order has their own timelines. For example, 143.3, the original assessment order has a timeline of 12 months. Yes, in very, very remote scenarios, people, it so happens that the officer ends up not passing the order off. Yes, but he's also extra smart. He doesn't want to show it anywhere. Yes, imagine if my deadline is 31st March, he will actually pass the order on 2nd April, but he will backdate it off. In the order, he will come and say it was passed on 20th March, but will come to your hand only on 2nd April. Yes, here is where you will come and say, sir, I'm sorry, the order is time, but I do not accept it. But he will come and say, no, Rahul, see, I passed the order on 20th March. I simply failed to communicate it to you. People, will you accept this as a statement? But in this case, you can't do anything. The order has already come. Yes, now you have two options here. You can go to CIT appeals and you can come and say, sir, the order is time barred. Will CIT appeals approve it? Definitely will not approve it. He will say, boss, forget the time barring and all. At the end of the day, issue is in hand. Why don't you go and fight on legal facts? Yes, so he will never approve that as an option. Here is where you don't have an alternate remedy. You can go and approach High Court and come and say, sir, he is abusing his powers. He was informed that he should pass the order within 31st March. He has passed it only on 2nd April. I do not accept the order. Kindly treat it as void ab initio. These are some simple practical examples in income tax why you end up filing a writ petition. There are 101 different cases which I can quote for you people, but this is the most common understandings of it. Are we making sense? Yes. Just be very, very careful about one thing. You can never approach a writ petition when you have an alternate remedy. Yes, which means you cannot open up a writ petition and come and say, sir, this is an issue which I am not accepting. The High Court will come and say, if it's an issue which you don't accept, you should have gone and filed a appeal. A standard appeal is what you should have filed. I am not here to sit and help you on appeals. I'm here to only help you on your abuse of authority. So don't come and give me those kind of nonsense. I will not accept it. Your writ petition will be eliminated there itself. They will not give you a single opportunity on those things. So you always use writ petition as an last resort. When you can literally prove that there is no other options available in your hands. Yes, people, assuming writ petition did not come in your favor, you directly go to, what is that called? You end up going to Supreme Court. Yes, at Supreme Court level, the writ appeal is what you call as SLP. The writ appeal is, in other words, called as SLP, nothing but special leave petition. A special leave petition is nothing but an appeal made against a writ order. Is an appeal made against a writ order where you go to the Supreme Court and come and say, sir, I'm sorry, I don't accept it. Here is where you approach the Supreme Court. Yes, so which means the process remains the same at High Court level, but this is what the model is. Understand, left side is only if you want to challenge the authority abuse. Right side is for all your actual issues. is for all your actual issues. Are we making sense? Yes. Now I wanted to understand this carefully. People at CIT level, do you think I and you will have access to all the orders? Can you and I access someone else's order? No, we will not have any access to orders. Appo, is CIT appeal something which you and I will be discussing in class? No, ICI has not notified any CIT appeals. ITAT is something which you and I will have access to. Yes, but the problem with ITAT is, people, every single person is talking different English. Yes, Chennai guy will say approved, Bangalore guy will say not approved, Mumbai guy will say I don't know. Yes, ITAT is at that one place where no one has a right answer, and therefore ITAT has too many contradictory judgments, which is why ICI confirmed saying we will not test you on ITAT appeals also. At your final level, you will be tested on High Court appeals and Supreme Court appeals. That is what we'll be discussing in the class atmosphere. Yes, so you don't have any CIT or ITAT appeals to be discussed upon. You're only going to discuss High Court and Supreme Court appeals. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes. Any doubts on the background? Does the background make sense? Something new you learned today? Yes, very good. We're going to keep that understanding, people, and we're going to take it forward. Now, we have done all the elements of an law. Clear with me? Clear with me? Yes. Now, before I get into a more technical session on how to understand the act, let's cover the balance of also. Yes. What do we have on the top? We have something called tax. We have something called tax. A brief discussion I did in the last class, people, where I told you a tax is nothing but a charge levied on you. It's nothing but a charge levied on you, which can be on anything. Like it can be on your incomes. It can also be on your expenses. It can also be on your expenses. When I levy it on your incomes, it is called income tax. When I levy it on your expenses, I call it GST or customs. GST or customs. Any charge levied on you is what is looking on those levels. Yes. Sometimes I also levy tax on services. Not the GST kind of services, but some other kind of services. For example, we have something called as stamp duty charges. We have something called as stamp duty charges. Tell me, people, stamp duty is a central law or a state law? It's a state law. Very good. Apart from that, people, you might have seen it. I'm not sure if you're handling individual filings, but in Form 16s, you will see it at various places. Something called as professional tax. Central law, state law. It's a state law. Very good. PT is also a state law. These are all taxes which are levied on the kind of services which you are engaging in India. Yes. So these are also additional taxes levied on you for that matter. Clear? Yes. Now when it comes to India, people, can you think and tell me what are the kind of taxes we have? I'll give you 5. Income tax, GST, customs, professional tax, stamp duty. Anything else? Any of the taxes that you know of? Old laws, latest. VAT is part of the old laws. Next. Very good. You have something called sewerage tax, property tax, water tax. Basically, we call it as municipal taxes. We call it as municipal taxes. Next. What else? Anything else that you have learnt of? Anything else that you have learnt of? Wealth tax is abolished. Next. Sorry? Gift tax is also abolished. Next. Very good. We have something called STT. We have something called STT, which is levied on not just share trading, online tradings, which is levied on online tradings. Very good. Next. What else can you think of? People, when you cross borders, not borders from India to another country, borders from state to another state, they levy something called, very good, you levy something called toll tax. That is also an additional tax which is levied on you. Yes, something which was there until last year, something called as equalization levy. Something called as equalization levy. I will give you a background on equalization levy, but I will make it very clear it is not part of your syllabus. Yes, so when we go to international standards, I will explain you what is equalization levy as well, but trust me, it is not relevant. It is not relevant. Are we clear? So these are the kind of taxes which you have, and taxes in India are split into two. One is direct tax and one is indirect tax. Very good. ये तो तुमने mug up कर लिया होगा. Yes, inter level mass आना mug up you would have done on what is direct tax and what is indirect tax. Now I don't deny it. Yes, you have done it amazingly well. I am here to nullify everything off. जो तुमने पढ़ा सब गलत है. Yes, tell me what is the difference between direct tax and indirect tax? Direct tax is directly levied on you. Very good. Direct tax is a tax on income and indirect tax is a tax on. Okay, this point I will agree of. Yes, this is the most basic standard point. Next. Something is progressive in nature, something is regressive in nature. क्या progressive है? Which one is progressive? Direct tax is progressive in nature. Progressive means the more the income, the more the tax. Regressive means less the income, more the tax. Same rate for everyone. Now people, my personal question, yes, this is just my thought. You say income tax means more the income, more the tax. Agreed, not agreed? Yes. Now my question is very simple. Today Rahul bought one iPhone. Rahul will pay GST 20% or 18%, 18% on the phone. Rahul will pay 18% of the phone because Rahul bought one iPhone. Rahul is buying two iPhones. Tax will increase, which means the more Rahul consumes, the more Rahul's tax. The more Rahul consumes, the more Rahul's tax. Apo indirect tax la what is happening? Let it be. Income tax maybe to wahi hai. After 10 lakhs, everything is 30% only, no? You have? Okay. After 5 crores, everything is the same. My question is very simple. When you say something is progressive, you say higher the income, higher the tax. I am telling in indirect tax, higher the expense, higher the tax means the same. Are you talking on rate perspective or are you talking in full numbers? Are you talking in rate perspective or talking in full numbers? Because if you're talking in full numbers, I would say direct tax is also increasing, indirect tax is also increasing. Now, tell me which one is progressive then? Correct. Yes. So the question number one you have to ask yourself is, when you say progressive in nature, are you talking higher income, higher rate, or are you talking higher income, higher tax? Understand this carefully with me. Are you making sense with me? Are you making sense with me? Yes. We will understand the fact that progressive means higher income, higher rates. That is what the understanding is. Clear with me on this? Yes. Very good. Third, the most idiotic thing you have learned, something called direct tax. You can indirect tax you can pass your burden out. Very good. Yes, you have something called shifting of burden. You can shift burden. You can shift burden income indirect tax. You cannot shift burden direct tax. ये तुमने पढ़ा है. Yes, people, I don't understand this itself. Tell me what do you mean by shifting burden? Why? What is he nice to you? Why is he so nice to you that he will pay your tax? When have you decided that your GST is being paid by someone else? You're supplying it further, it becomes shift of burden. Okay. People, I want you to understand this carefully. Situation aisa hai. Imagine there is a guy called Aryan. Yes, Aryan is going to buy something. क्या खरीदने वाला है? कुछ भी नहीं खरीदेगा. अब भी कैलकुलेटर में GST लगता है? हाँ लगता है, चलेगा. Yes, imagine Aryan is going and Aryan is buying a calculator of. Yes, so Aryan has decided to buy a calculator of. कितने का खरीदा? क्या कैलकुलेटर खरीद रहा है तू? 1000 रुपए का. हाँ. अच्छा, बॉय एंड गर्ल में डिफरेंस आ गया. अच्छा, बार्गेनिंग तेरे से हो नहीं रही. Yes. Imagine people, yes, I went to a shop, Aryan went to a shop and Aryan has bought a calculator. Assuming, ठीक है, for the sake of number convenience, मान के चलेंगे 1000 रुपए. Yes, 1000 रुपए देना is a crime, but ठीक है, जो भी है. Yes, so you have paid 1000 rupees. On this 1000 rupees, you have to pay 18. Calculator में 18% लग रहा है क्या? अच्छा, चलो ठीक है, 18% मान के चलते हैं. 180 हाँ, तो Aryan has paid 1180 from his hand. Aryan has paid 1180 from his hand, which means Aryan has paid 180 rupees extra to the government for using of the calculator. Now Aryan says, if I further supply this calculator off, my burden gets shifted. My burden gets shifted. So imagine Aryan goes to, and this is on the assumption that Aryan is running a business, because if Aryan is a personal consumption, that's a different conversation. But imagine Aryan is going to Shubham, and Aryan is selling it to Shubham. Price, Marwadi double here. Yes, he is planning to sell it to Shubham for a price of 2000. Now Aryan will levy 18% GST, which becomes 360, totaling to 2360. Now what will Aryan do? Aryan will go and pay to the government 360, but claim back a refund of 180, which means technically Aryan's number becomes 0. Aryan's number becomes 0. Aryan paid 180, Aryan claimed 180, number end up becoming 0. Ended up Shubham paying 360. Here is where you call a shift of burden. You say shift of burden means when I further supply, my tax becomes 0. Agreed, not agreed? Yes. Now I want you to understand this on a direct tax level. Shopkeeper has sold Aryan how much? 1000 rupees worth of a product. Shopkeeper has sold Aryan 1000 rupees worth of a product. I am ignoring that for now. Yes, Aryan has paid shopkeeper 1000. So for Aryan, this is a expense. Aryan has earned an income of 2000. So Aryan has made a profit of 1000, which is why Aryan is paying tax on. Correct, not correct? Apo think about this, people. If Aryan had no expense, he would have paid tax on 2000. Because Aryan has an expense, Aryan is now paying tax on 1000, which means Aryan has shifted his tax burden. How much should Aryan have paid? 2000 Kamala tax. How much has Aryan ended up paying? 1000 Kamala tax, which means technically Aryan has shifted his burden of 1000 rupees tax. Correct. Which is what my question is. When did you shift your burden in GST? When you made a further supply. When are you shifting burden in income tax? When you're making a further expense. Farak kya hai? People, it's working in the reverse scenario. If you think about it, in GST, what is happening? I am first incurring the expense, then I am reducing my tax by making a revenue. In direct tax, what are you doing? You're first making revenue, and then you're shifting it off by passing on expense. Apo technically, rendu edathila you're shifting burden. Technically, both the places you are shifting burden. In GST, you cannot shift burden unless you further supply. In direct tax, you cannot shift burden unless you make further expense. Which means in GST, if you further supply, your GST is down. And in income tax, if I further expense, my income tax is down. Shift of burden is happening either ways. Shift of burden is happening. Apo kya shift of burden chal raha hai indirect tax mein?
Indirect tax will collect the tax from the person instead of you paying.
Oh, so shift of burden is basically about you are not paying the tax, someone else is paying the tax. TDS सुना है? TDS में क्या हो रहा है? People, GST you are coming and saying you will not pay the tax, someone else will pay on your behalf. That's because you are paying him money, which means that person is acting as your agent. Tell me what is happening in TDS. Who was supposed to pay tax? Rahul. Who ended up paying the tax? So he withdrew it from my money and paid off the tax to government. Apo he is now acting as an agent. Baat to wahi hui. If you ask me, I will tell you GST and TDS are the same. And if you come and ask me, TDS on GST and income tax is the same. Akina. My TDS is his GST and his TDS is my income tax. Baat to. Tell me, what are you shifting burden in indirect tax? Why are you not able to shift burden in direct tax? मैं करके दिखाता हूँ. I will pay more expense. I will have no income tax. Very easy it is. Pass on my income to someone else. And that is what we do, no Marwadi business people. Yes, as long as I am earning money, I have to pay tax. So the moment I receive money, I will pass it on to 5 different people. And I will say my income is 0. So my burden is gone. Hello. Yes or no? Apo tell me, people, what are you shifting burden in indirect tax? कुछ की पढ़ लिया इंटर में, पता ही नहीं क्या चल रहा है. Yes or no? Yes. Tell me, are you really shifting burden in indirect tax? No. You are shifting burden only to the extent you further supply. Same goes for income tax. I am shifting my burden as long as I am incurring expense. The moment I incurred expense, my income of 1000 became shopkeeper's income of 1000. So instead of me paying tax on the 1000, shopkeeper is paying tax on 1000. Matlab I have shifted my burden from myself to my shopkeeper. Correct, not correct? Yes. Apo jo pada inter mein wo sab galat hi tha. Yes or no? Yes. There is no such concept of shifting burden, people. This is something which we tell. But practically does not make any sense. You are a CA final student. You need to start objecting to things. Yes. Here is your first objection. There is no shifting of burden when it comes to direct tax or indirect tax. It is all about how you play your game. Yes or no? Yes. Apo, if you come and ask me, people, direct tax and indirect tax में सिर्फ एक ही difference है. Direct tax is levied on, indirect tax is levied on. इतना ही है. और कुछ भी नहीं है. There is nothing else which is there in direct tax and indirect tax. This is the only thing which I know which is a right answer. Which is a right answer. इसके अलावा इसका कोई आंसर नहीं है. Are we making sense? Are we making sense? Yes, great. To that extent, people, this is not something I tested at final level, but nevertheless, I'll give you examples. Tell me whether it is direct tax or indirect tax. Yes, yes. Wealth tax. Abolish हो गया, चलेगा. Direct tax or indirect tax? Direct tax. Property tax. Property tax is indirect tax. How is property tax a direct tax? Property tax is money levied on your bought of property, which means you made an expense because of which you're paying a tax. How is it indirect tax? It's an indirect tax. Wealth tax may be a direct tax. Yes or no? Yes. Equalization levy. क्या है नहीं पता. Equalization levy is a direct tax. It's a money levied on your direct incomes. Yes. What is that? We will discuss it later. Customs duty. Import duty. Indirect taxes. Professional tax. Professional taxes. It's a direct tax. Professional tax is a direct tax. It's money levied on your employment. Money levied on your employment. State is collecting money on your employment, which means the more you're earning income, the more you're ending up paying professional tax. That is also a direct taxes. Yes, yes. What else have we learned? Gift tax. Gift taxes. Direct tax or indirect tax? Ask yourself a question. Who will pay the gift tax? Person receiving the gift or person paying the gift? Person. Obviously, if the person is receiving the gift, that means it's an income. Therefore, it is direct tax. People, gift tax is now part of income tax, IFOS, section 56(2). Very good. It's called section 56(2) and it's part of direct tax right now. Yes, that is how the whole model works. Yes, sir. Yes, we learned something in the past, something called sales tax. VAT. All these are indirect tax. Excise duty. People, excise duty is still there or abolished? Levied on alcohol. It's levied on alcohol. Excise duty is still there in India, people, only levied on alcohol. The reason is very simple. Why? Because excise duty is levied by the state, and state was very arrogant in coming and saying, I will not pass on my alcohol profits to central. I want it at my state level. So excise duty is kept alive only for alcohol purposes. Only for alcohol purposes. As long as you consume alcohol, excise duty will remain in India. They will never change it. Yes, the moment GST came into picture, people, a big problem which happened is money was being passed on to central, and states were very clear. Boss, the only one place where I earn the most is alcohol. I'm not giving it away. Therefore, excise duty still remains in picture for that extent. Yes, yes. That is what a direct tax and indirect tax looks like. Any doubts on this piece? तो तुम सप्लाई भी नहीं करो, जीएसटी भी सेम ही रहेगा. यस. How can, okay, so if I understand your question carefully, you're telling me GST, it's a mandate that you have to pass on your business, and therefore shift of burden will automatically happen. In indirect tax, in income tax, you will not be required to earn an True. So that's, see, I'll put it this way. Now you're talking about understanding whether you have to do it or not do it, right? Now in GST, you're telling me it's a mandatory that you have to do it. Whereas in income tax, you're saying it's not mandatory to do it. I don't think that's the right answer, no? Because if you understand this carefully, I'll put it this way. Imagine you bought goods in the current year. If you supply it in the current year, shift of burden happens in the same year. If you don't supply it in the current year, what happens? What? That is only from the ITC side, not from the supply side. When you are doing ITC from your side, and if you have not paid the money within 180 days, you have to reverse the ITC part of it. Here is not that case. I have already paid off my money. I am only passing on my responsibility. My question is very simple. Today you have goods in your hand. You have already paid the tax on the GST. Tomorrow, if you have not supplied it in the same year, will you be able to shift your burden? When will that happen? Same. So which means happens in the next year, which means technically in the current year, the burden is with you. It will only pass on in the next year. Same example, income tax. Today I may not have expenses. So today I will end up paying tax. Tomorrow when I have expenses, I can claim a refund. Very well. Yes. Now you may come and say, Rahul, as a logical person, why would someone like to incur expense? Yes. That's the funny thing, no? In India, a person does not incur expenses A person shows that he has incurred expenses, and that's the whole difference, right? Now, I can easily shift my burden to someone else by saying I've incurred an expense, but in all logical sense, I may have not done it. So, a person would like to show more income or less income. ऐसा कोई रूल नहीं है. नेक्स्ट ईयर ले लो रिफंड, क्या दिक्कत है? रिफंड तो कभी भी आ जाएगा. There is no mandate that expense has to happen in the same year, right? Can happen in the next year also. Mercantile system works very beautifully on accounts. कैसे?
For example, after service provider,
You are providing me a service.
GST from me I pay to the government.
Perfect.
But from an income tax perspective, I'll pay my own income tax. Why will you pay my?
True, but when you further see for providing the service, will you incur expenses? Not incur expenses.
Assuming there is
Why would you not incur expenses for a service? Don't you at least bare minimum have to have a building or an electricity expense?
no bare minimum expenses. So what the bare minimum?
See, and that's what I'm trying to tell you, Aryan. My point is very simple. You're talking about what is mandatory and what is not mandatory. My question is very simple. Is shift of burden as an act of mandate or is it because of a choice? When you want to pay lesser income tax, you will make that choice in order to incur more expense. See, as a logical person, as a CA, you and I both know my expenses are the bare minimum because everything is going to be paid by the client, which means if you come and ask me, everything for me is a profit. Yes or no? But to an income tax department, would I like to disclose that? Because it ends up more tax. I would like to report more expenses there. So here is an act of choice. Now, by an act of choice, I am choosing to shift off burden. Agreed? Yes. And
But there is no shift of burden. Those are all bogus expenses.
that's a different conversation. See, and that's the choice. That's the same thing I'm trying to tell you, Aryan. My point is very simple. In GST also, a shift of burden only happens when you end up further supply. If you decide not to further supply, tax remains with you. If you end up further supply, then you have to shift off burden. But if you don't further supply, what happens? The tax is something you are going to pay off. Agree? Which means in GST also, shift of burden is only happening by choice. Okay, let me put it this way. You are going to come to a point where you're going to buy a car. Can you claim ITC on it? You made a choice to buy a car still. No, you can't. How can you? Which means to decide to further supply or to decide to consider it as an expense in my books is still my choice, right? Now you may come and say, yes, I am registering in GST only to do business. As an income tax person, I am also telling the same thing. I am registered in income tax only for the purpose of paying more tax or less tax. Legally less tax. Let me put it this way, right? No person wants to do it. My point is very simple. I am not denying the fact. You may say shift of burden is there in income tax, sorry, not there in GST and not there in income tax. My point is, as a practical person, a shift of burden only happens by choice. And the choice is equally given to you in both, which means in both I can decide whether I want to shift burden or not shift burden. To that extent, that is what the practical issue is. I am not denying books mein hai, main maan ke chalta hu. Yes, but as a practical person, you need to understand it doesn't make any sense. Agreed with me? Agreed with me? I am buying a car. I am buying a car.
So my burden is shifting.
How?
Yeah.
Let's understand this, Yash. Let's understand this, Yash. You have bought a car. You have paid GST of, let's say, 10,000 rupees. Yes, you are going to claim depreciation. The moment you're claiming depreciation on 10,000. But your tax benefit is only to the extent of 30%, which means you're still losing 70% of the loss. You're still not shifting your burdens. Agree? Yes. People have this very weird, and thank you for asking this question, because I know a lot of people have this weird thing. A lot of people come and say, why should I take my GST credits? Because even if I don't take my GST credit, I can claim it as an expense in income tax. Understand, when you claim something as an expense in income tax, you don't get the complete refund. You only get 30% of it, which means losing money there is stupidity. And this is something which we'll discuss in the future classes. People understand, you never make a decision in income tax to reduce an expense when it is going to result in a extra outflow of cash. So many people come and tell me, Rahul, ATG is such a good scheme. In ATG, I can pay money and I can get 50% reduction. That is such a beautiful scheme for me to lower my tax. Think and tell me, are you stupid or are you smart here? You are 101% stupid here. Think about this carefully. By paying donations, you have lost 100 rupees. By paying donations, you have lost 100 rupees. Donation gives you a claim of 50%, which means you got a benefit of 50 rupees, but that 50 rupees is from your income, which means you ended up claiming 30% of 15, which means you ended up claiming only 15 rupees, which means you paid 100 from your pocket. Government gave you refund of 15. Net you lost 85. Net you lost 85. Tell me, are you stupid or smart? Maha stupid you are here. Yes. Point is, people, when it comes to chapter 6A donations, I always come and say, in chapter 6A deductions, you should never take that deduction which ends up losing money. Any deduction which ends up losing money is a loss, is a 101% loss, because you lose 100 but claim only 30. Investments in chapter 6A should only happen in schemes where you can get the whole money back. Examples like insurance, you will not get money back. Very good, you will get it in ELSS. Fixed deposits, PF contributions, all these places are when you are contributing, you will get back the same money plus 30% deduction, which means these are the places to invest. To go and advise your client to say, sir, life insurance लो, health insurance लो, आपको deductions मिलेगा, is one of the most worthless deductions to be given, because here is where you are losing 100 rupees of money in order to claim back 30% of deduction. These, as in CA, should not be the advice from your side itself, unless and until you are at a point where you are like 5,10,000. In that scenario, you would like to do it. Why? Because it's okay to pay the 10,000 rupees in order to claim a full rebate of 12,500. I'm still saving 2,500 rebate here, which means I would still suggest that as a suggestion only for the persons who are at the brink of being poor. Make sense? Yes. So consultants works a little differently, people. Marginal relief was only for new regime. Only if I opt for new tax regime, not for old tax regime. Old tax regime does not give you rebate marginal benefits. Yes. Discuss in the next classes. Clear with me? Any doubts on this part? Yes. This is what a high level summary is on, people. Any doubts on this summary? No. Now I wanted to take some notes along with me, but before that, let's understand this carefully. People, now I am going to go back to my law. And the first law which we are going to discuss about is Act. Before I conclude on that, let's understand there are 5 items, people: Act, rules, circulars, notifications, case laws. Tell me the order of priority. Which means which one is superior to someone else. Can someone override someone is my question mark. Can rules override Act? Can rule override Act? Is that a possibility? No, it's not a possibility, because if you understand, Act is created by legislative body. Rules only tell you what to do. Rules only tell you how to do. Rules cannot tell you what to do, which means at any point of time, rules cannot take the power of an Act. Which is why I've been telling you, people, the new circular which has come in on the rebate is actually illegal. It's void ab initio, because Act has nowhere come and confirmed that you cannot claim rebate. Circular giving that as a notification, circular giving that as a guidance is purely illegal. You can question that and you can make it invalid. That can never happen. So rules cannot override an Act, because if you understand this carefully, the power to make a rule itself is coming from an Act only. There is a section called section 295. 295 gives the powers of an Act to make rules. So therefore, rules is always going to sit on the lower end. It cannot sit on the top end. Not possible at all. One of the most beautiful examples I have to give you, people, was 2017, when we had introduced something called as ICDS. Income Computation and Disclosure Standards, cheap version of accounting standards. Yes, income tax way of introducing cheap version of accounting standards. Problem, what happened is, ICDS was introduced in rules. CBDT one of the days woke up and came and said, we will introduce ICDS. Everyone said, oh no, what has happened? No one was happy. Some people were smarter. They immediately went and filed a writ petition. Coming and challenging the authenticity of an ICDS, because ICDS was introduced by rules, and rules have no power to make laws. The moment they introduced ICDS, they brought in extra clauses, people. They started coming and saying, you have to start taxing this, you have to start taxing that. Advocates went to court and came and said, who are you to come and tell me this? You are simply a CBDT. You have never taken the position of a finance minister. This is not valid. 2018, High Court passed a judgment and confirmed, saying ICDS is illegal. The whole ICDS was abolished of, which is when Nirmala ma'am in 2019 woke up and came and said, let's make it as a part of the Act. Yes, which is where in 2019 people, ICTS was introduced in the Act itself. We amended section 145 and section 145 confirmed saying that ICTS is now legally valid. Problem was it was introduced retrospectively. It was ended up introducing retrospectively, which means all judgments passed between 17, 18 and 19 became void. That is how it works. But the point is very simple, people. When something gets introduced by a rules or a circular, you need to be careful whether it is valid or invalid. As a CA, you have the opportunity to raise a voice. This circular, I can confirm to you, is illegal, purely illegal, to come and confirm that rebate is not eligible on new tax regime in 2025-26 assessment years. Not something rules can do. Perfectly illegal. Are we clear? Yes, great. Can circular override act? No. Can circular override rules? No. Again, circulars is only a clarification. It cannot decide powers, cannot override rules. Can circular override notifications? No. Again, cannot be done because notifications is binding on both the parties. Circular is binding only on one party. Majority wins here. Yes. In simple words, circular is sitting in the last place. When it comes to order of priority, on the top is sitting case laws. Because case laws can break the law. Second comes act. Third comes rules along with notifications. They both are fairly the same thing. Next comes circulars. Are we making sense? This is the order of priority, more for your understanding purposes. Any doubts on this part? Are we good to go? Perfect. For the last 30 minutes, people, what we're going to do is we're going to quickly be understanding how does an act look like. Yes, this is more for your understanding so that you are able to interpret how the new act looks like. We have now something called as Income Tax Act 2025. I'll be teaching you how an act looks like, people. You can use the same reliance for your Income Tax Act 2025. Are we making sense? Perfect. So every time you start an act, people, I am right now focusing on what is called as IT Act 1961. This is what we call as Income Tax Act 1961. For you to create an act, there are some rules to follow. Every act starts with sections. Where the first section is called section number 1. Which is nothing but name, or what we call as title. Title. Next, it's called extent and commencement. Nature क्या होता है? It always starts with something called title, extent and commencement. Three things will be always notified in section number 1. For my sake of convenience, people, title means this act is called as Income Tax Act 1961. Very good. Extent means to who does it apply? Income Tax Act applies to whole of people, including Jammu and Kashmir, excluding Jammu and Kashmir. It doesn't matter because the article has been deleted off. Which means any act created right now is ought to assume to be part of Jammu and Kashmir as well. And third thing is called meaning, date on which I start. Help me out, people. Income Tax 1961 applies from 1st April 1960 by क्यों भाई? Nope. So what? Why? 1 year you will not apply act. Up to 1961, that for 1 year there was no income tax. That is because in income tax old laws, it was always applicable in assessment year terms, which means it was notified as 1st April 1962. Why did I notify it as 1st April 1962? Because income tax uses English in assessment year language, which means they said it is applicable from assessment year 62, 63 or previous year 61, 62, which means 61 is the year in which you will earn income. 62 is the year in which you will pay tax. Income tax is looking from 62. Now, why am I telling you this? People, for your exam, which Finance Act is applicable? Finance Act 2025. People, Finance Act 2025 applies from 1st April 2020. Very good. It applies from 1st April 2026 because you are reading Finance Act 25 applicable for previous year 25-26, assessment year 26-27. Yes, the one small mistake and the horrible mistake I've seen students making is they will open the Finance Act and the Finance Act will say this amendment is applicable from 1st April 26. And the first question which will come up to me is, Rahul, this is saying it is applicable from next year only. Why am I reading it this year? People, it is never applicable from next year. It is applicable for this year itself because this is my previous year. That is my assessment year. Let's understand, people. Until you're reading 61, all dates have to be read as assessment year dates. All dates have to be read as assessment year dates. Don't make that mistake of. Are we making sense? Yes, but there is a catch point here. People, these dates which are given to you is only for computational provisions. Sometimes when I make a change in the law for TDS, for assessment procedures, that time I will not say 1st April 26. That time I will say 1st April 25. Because if you understand, when it's an administrative provision, things like TDS, things like assessment procedures and all, it does not apply in assessment year language. It applies in, I want to do it this year itself. No. So therefore, you have to understand when you read an act, dates can become confusing. The logic is very simple. Computational dates will be assessment year language. Administrative rules will be previous year language. At the same time, you need to be careful on retro changes. When we make retro changes and we make 1st April 2017, there we talk from previous year changes. There we don't talk from assessment year changes, which means current year changes on income basis will be happening in assessment year language. Everything else will happen in previous year language. Are we making sense? Yes, that is section number 1. Any act will have a section number 1 which will talk about title, extent and commencement. Yes, people, tell me, Income Tax Act 2025 commencement date is 1st April 2020. 1st April 2025. 1st April 2025. That's the whole bloody point of making the act, people. Now there is no concept of assessment year. Now there is a concept of tax year. Income tax said we don't want confusion itself. We are very confused with what is assessment year and previous year. Therefore, we are calling everything tax year, which is why they said it is applicable from 1st April 25. Or in simple words, your tax year 25. Correct? Yes. Although wrong, people, it is 1st April 26 only. Because 25 we had Finance Act 25. It is applicable from tax year 26. It is applicable from tax year 26, or in simple words, assessment year 27. So to that extent, yes, 1st April 26 there is 1st April 26 of the previous year. It is not of the assessment year. So from next year, you will not have the confusion. When you see a date, it means it is from that date. It does not mean it will be from the next date. So from next year, that will be simplified. But for this year, you will have this confusion of. So understand, people, when you're reading Finance Act 25, Finance Act 25 will say 1st April 2026. 1st April 2026. Any doubts on this part? Makes sense? Yes. Then comes up and follows with something called as section number, which talks about, very good, which talks about definitions. Now, in income tax or any law for that matter, definitions are of 3 types. Definitions are of 3 types. Inclusive definition. Exclusive definition. Very good. It's called exhaustive definition. We have 3 types, people. What are the 3 types? Inclusive definition, exclusive definition, exhaustive definition. Very simple. Inclusive mane, this is there. Anything else can also be there if it is related. Exclusive means Exclusive means the items which I've said is not there. The items which I've said is not there. Exhaustive means what I say is only there. What I say is only there. How does the language look like in ACT, people? And inclusive looks like includes. They will use the word includes. For example, they will say person includes, which means I have given you a list of persons, someone else can also be part of it. Yes, then I have excludes. Then I have excludes, meaning some items are not there. Some items are not there. For the example, I'll say this excludes so and so items. Excludes so and so items. For example, they say when it comes to section 222. Any idea? Dividend rules. Section 222 dividend rules come and says for the purpose of section 222 we exclude any buyback. In the last clause, previous clause and all used to come and say we exclude any buyback or we exclude any bonus shares on equity holders. Yes, so when I use the word excludes, it means these items are not there. Yes, and then exhaustive reads by, very good, it reads by means. It reads by means. When you see the word means itself, it means it is the only thing there. It is the only thing there. Can you give me an example? A definition would start with means. The definition of India starts with means. The definition of India starts with means. Section 225A. Section 225A, India definition says India means these items. People, why am I using the word means and not includes? It's India only, no? I could have used includes. Correct, no? Correct, no? I could have used the word includes. Why am I using means definition? People, you're talking about a land. The moment you start using includes, you can say, bagal wale sare mere hi hain. Yes, you cannot use the word includes when it comes to land masses, people. Suddenly you cannot come and say Nepal is also part of India only. Sab Chinese hi to baithe wahan pe. Can't do that. Yes, so therefore they've used the word means there to clarify this is what I can take. This is what I can take. Idukku mela allowed kadiyadu. Idukku mela allowed kadiyadu. Correct? Yes, section number 2 is part of the thing. Then comes, any act should have something called, very good, an act should always have something called as charging section in income tax. That sits at section number 4. That sits at section number 4. Section number 4 talks about what we call as charge of income tax. What we call as charge of income tax. If you notice this carefully, people, section number 1 only gave you the title. It has still not come and clarified. Why is it there? Yes or no? The why is always part of section number 4. This is what in very simple English we call as the mother section. Yes, which means this section gives the whole act the powers to do something. Every act, normally it is section number 3. In income tax alone, we put it as section number 4 because section number 3 has been defined as what is previous year. Yes, we define what is previous year in section number 3. That is why it is like that. Otherwise, it is section number 4. Section number 4. Clear? Yes. What else do you need to have in an act? What else do you need to have in an act? Anything else? Anything else? Huh? That's charging section. Okay, that's all. That's not in every act, no. That's in income tax. That's only in income tax. Generally, I'm asking. You need to have something called penal provisions. People, this is India. Yes, in India, every person who's following a law will never come and follow a law. He will first ask you a question. People, no Indians come and say, why should I follow? Always the first question is, what if I don't follow? Yes, so India has a standard rule. You always need to have a penalty rule. You always need to have a penalty rule. Otherwise, you cannot work out in India. Yes, if you don't create a penalty rule, India will only say one simple question. जब कुछ हो रहा ही नहीं है तो फिर फर्क क्या पड़ता है? Yes, very simple example is Aadhaar PAN linking. Yes, 2017 introduced the law. 2024 we are still trying to link. That is because in 2023, for the first time, India realized, oh shit, for 6 years I've told you to link, but I did not tell you what happens if I don't. Yes, so 2017 link panna case, every 6 months they kept on extending. And Modi, every 6 months he'll come and say, yenda panna matikranga. Every 6 months they will come and extend and he will ask the same question. Why are people not linking? I'm trying so hard to put it on the speech. Yes, then in 2023 is when they realized, oh, I have forgotten to put penalty. That is when in 2023 they introduced late filing fee. And they said if you now have to link, you have to pay 1,000 rupees for late filing fee. That also people like, okay, only if I link I have to pay. No. I will not link itself. Yes, which is why in 2025 they introduced a saying, if you don't link, I will make it invalid. I'll make it invalid, your PAN will become invalid. That time people realized, oh, PAN is now becoming invalid, now let's file. Even now people have not done a different conversation, but TK, at least now something is there. Yes or no? Yes, this is India, people. Before you create a law, you need to first create penalty on that. Yes or no? Yes. Last thing which is always required is what is called as delegation of powers. Last thing is what is called as delegation of powers, which means every act needs to have a administrative body. Every act needs to create an administrative body for itself. In income tax, we sit it at section 295. Yes, penal provisions are somewhere between section 270 and forward. Section 270 and forward is where your penalty provisions sit at. Yes, these are the 5 bare minimum things any law should have. Without this, you cannot run a law. Yes, without this, you cannot run a law. I'm not talking about income tax, people. I'm talking about any law for that matter, including Companies Act. These are the 5 bare minimum things you need to have in the law. Are we clear? Yes. Now let's understand how to read a law. I'm going to take up one section for you. Yes. Let's hypothetically assume I'm going to discuss with you what is called as section number 5. Anyone, any idea? What is section number 5? Sorry? Section number 5 talks about scope of total income. Section number 5 talks about scope of total income, meaning what is going to be taxable for you and what is not going to be taxable for you. Now people, imagine you and I don't even know what is there in section number 5. To read section number 5, what are the bare minimum things which should be there? How does a section look like? What and all is there in a section? First, section number 5 with a heading. Under that, you will have something called as a subsection. Yes, you will first have something called as a subsection. So you will have subsection 1, subsection 2, subsection 3, and so on and forward. Then, very good, you will have something called as a clause inside it. Then you will have something called as a subclause inside it. इतना तक तो तुमने पढ़ा, इसके बाद ही नहीं पता. Para line. That is what the line is. Later on. Subclass ka appuram idukulla edho podnona. If I want to put something inside this people till this stage someone teaches you. Iske baad hi koi nahi padhata. Yes, here is when comes in something called as item. Here is where something comes as item, and then something comes as sub item. Yes, this is how any section is being created, people. So you start with section, subsection, clause, subclause, item, sub item. This is what you have. Apart from this, people, you have something called as proviso. Tell me, what do you mean by a proviso? Proviso is a exception to the section or subsection. Can you have a proviso for the whole section itself? You can have a proviso only for the subsection. So one specific subsection will have a proviso. Yes, so this is an exception to the rule. This is an exception to the rule. For a simple example, people, I can come and say, let's say for example, I'm creating an act called as Fruit Act. I'm creating an act called as Fruit Act, where I'm coming and saying a fruit means something with a seed. A fruit means something with a seed. Now the moment I said a fruit means something with a seed, every bloody thing becomes a fruit. Yes or no? Yes, tomato is a fruit or a vegetable. Jagda chal raha hai. Yes, let's create the law. You tell me, people, what do you want? You want tomato as a fruit or a vegetable? You want it as a vegetable? Yes, salad mein nahi kha sakte. Yes, we cannot put it in a fruit salad. It looks very weird. Yes, so now I want to decide saying that everything with a seed is a fruit, but tomato is not a fruit. What will I do? I'll put a proviso. Proviso will say, provided that a tomato will not be classified as a fruit. A tomato will not be classified as a fruit. Agreed, not agreed? Yes. How do we identify the proviso in a section? What is the words you are looking for to find a proviso? You look for something called as provided that. You look for something called as provided that. The moment you look for something called as provided that, it means a proviso. It means a proviso. If it is a second proviso, exception, it's called provided further. It's called provided further. Third, provided Very good. It's called provided also. It's called provided also. Until third, it's called provided also. After that, fourth is same provided also. Same provided also becomes a start end point. Yes, which means first proviso will be provided that, second will be provided further, last will be provided also. After proviso comes explanations. After provided comes something called as explanation. What does explanation mean, people? What does explanation mean? What does explanation mean? कुछ की है. Explanation basically helps you define a few things. For example, if I come and say in salaries chapter, a family is exempted from salaries. LTA, for example. Yes, if you're giving LTA to a family, it is fully exempted. Now, you and I need to understand what is a family, and therefore that comes as a part of explanation. You say in explanation, family means so and so persons. So and so persons. So it helps you define a few things. Yes. Now, how does an explanation read, people, in law? How do you look at something and tell this is an explanation? It will start itself with saying explanation 1, explanation 2, explanation 3, and so on and so forth. Yes. So explanations will have a number terms itself. There will not be an issue there. Are we making sense? Yes. That brings me to two last things, people. In an act, if you remember, I told you a proviso would be an exception to a subsection. Imagine if I want to create a proviso to a section itself, meaning this section itself I want to override. I will start with something called as non-obstante clause. Non-obstante clause in simple words means I am telling this section will have powers over the previous section. So therefore we start with something called as notwithstanding anything contained contrary. Notwithstanding anything contained in the contrary. However, people, the words notwithstanding is only part of your income tax 1961. Yes, with creating your new law of 2025, they decided notwithstanding looks like big English. I don't like this English, and therefore was introduced a word called as irrespective. Yes, kitna ghatiya word hai ye. Yes, so now we start with something called as irrespective. Yes, so the provisions of 2025 would say irrespective of anything contained contrary in that section. This is what it is. Notwithstanding look more nice, no? Look, that power tha usme. Yes, isme power hi nahi hai, pata nahi kyun. Itna ganda sa lagta hai ye. Yes, and the last thing which we have is something called as subject to clause. What do you mean by subject to clause? Exactly opposite. Non-obstante will override it. Subject to will undermine it. Meaning, if I come and say subject to, I am saying first you refer that and then come and read this which means this will have lower powers. Are we clear? Yes, this is how an act looks like, people. Now, I am giving you this detail out because, like I said, as we progress further in classes, I will give you homework assignments. Yes, where I'll give you a section and you will have to read the section. When you read the section, all these things have to be kept in mind. Yes. Items, people. Items are section, subsection, clause, subclause, item, sub-item. Then we have provisos, explanations, notwithstanding clauses, subject to clauses. Any doubts on this part? Are we clear? Yes. Last thing, and I close you for today, people. Imagine if I give you something to read. Yes, read this for me. I'm giving you section 2. Read. Section 2, subsection 31, clause A, subclause A, item number 1. Very good. This is called section 2, clause 31, subclause A, item number AA, sub item number I. There is no subsection in this. I am trying another one. Let's say I give you 6, 1A, AA, I, 1, जो भी है पढ़ो. Section 6. Section 6. Section 6. You confirm, चलेगा जो भी है, कोई एक डिसाइड कर लो, कोई एक डिसाइड कर लो. Subsection, अच्छा subsection, हाँ, clause, subclause, item, sub item, हाँ कि ना? Yes, very good. I am in section 10. Section 10, 1A, double A, 1, 2, जो भी है, हाँ. Section 10. Section 10. Very good. Section 10. Clause 1. Subclause A. आई ज़्यादा हो गया, ठीक है.
वही देखिए तो subsection नहीं होगा।
Item, sub item, sub item. Yes, yes, yes. This is homework for you for today. This is homework for you for today. You're going to tell me in the next class why is something subsection and why is something clause. Next tomorrow class is homework. Yes, जाओ research करके आओ और मेरे को बताओ. Research करके आओ, मेरे को बताओ why some sections have subsections and some have clauses and some have clauses. This is a homework for you to figure out. Yes, so 2 homeworks for today I've given you people. Homework number 1, President of India, and difference between how to identify which one has a subsection and difference has a clause. Yes, yes, yes. Tomorrow's class people, I will give you the notes. Please don't worry about it. ये पूरा notes I will explain to you. You can write it down. आज के लिए you don't have to write any notes. I'll give you the complete notes. Again, these notes are only for your reference. ये exam में नहीं आएंगे. Yes, but I want to give you these notes properly people, because in tomorrow's class when I give you the notes, I'll also give you differentiation between 2025 and 1961. So we'll create proper notes in which we'll give you differentiations between 1961 and 2025. At least next time when you read 25, it should not look new to you. Yes, so we'll do that in the next class. Giving you notes is my responsibility. If you like taking learning notes, that's your headache. Yes, but I will give you all the notes. So unless I give you notes, it is not important. So don't worry about it. Clear with me? Yes, next class. Next class. Thank you people. Have a good day.